sociology is an evolving and dynamic subfield within sociology that places the visual at the center of understanding society. It recognizes that images, whether photographs, films, digital media, painting, advertisements, or even everyday visual arrangements, are not mere illustrations, but crucial sources of meaning, communication, and cultural production. The visual actively shapes our perceptions, identities, and of course, power relations. To put it simply, visual sociology is like putting on a pair of superpowered glasses that allow us to see what's really happening in the world, far beyond spreadsheets and dense academic jargon. It takes into account everything we can see, from old family photos and iconic movie scenes to TikTok trends and graffiti that transforms city walls into public diaries. Today, we live in a mediated world, and everything we do is about visuals. We can't escape from visuals. Images aren't just accessories to our lives today, but they run the show. They shape who we think we are, what we fear, what we celebrate, and even who we trust. For teachers, visual sociology opens up new pedagogical possibilities, moving beyond text based learning. With the use of memes, photos, and videos, even the most complex sociological concepts can be made accessible. For researchers, it provides tools to capture nuances that words alone often fail to convey. Atmospheres, spatial arrangements, and silent stories. In our present moment, where rapid digitalization, global crisis, and cultural transformations are visually mediated, training ourselves to critically read, produce, and analyze visuals has become essential. Visual sociology equips scholars with the conceptual frameworks and methodological toolkits needed to navigate this terrain, making it a vital approach for both contemporary research and pedagogy. In other words, learning to spot the power plays in a photograph, the emotions in a doodle, or the social commentary in the viral meme is not just insightful, but I think it is necessary today. Through this ad hoc group, our aim is to position visual sociology as a core analytical approach within sociological research and education. This initiative seeks to expand the methodological scope of the discipline and foster a deeper understanding of social realities through visual representation. Keeping in mind the shifts in contemporary India, we plan to explore themes such as rise of visual culture and, of course, its impact on sociological understanding, multimodal research using diverse visual modes, everyday experiences through visuals, visual sociology as an aid to public sociology, marginalized sections and visual representation, or today's AI-driven image analysis and geospatial mapping. These are just few themes which I have mentioned just now, but we definitely plan to expand more. Coming to today's program, this program marks the first step in our journey of exploring and applying visual sociology. It seeks to introduce teachers and emerging scholars to its scope, possibilities, and relevance in research and pedagogy. On behalf of this ad hoc group, I must take this opportunity to thank the Indian Sociological Society, President Professor Maitreyee Chaudhuri, Secretary Dr. Shweta Prasad, Treasurer Professor Vivek Kumar, and all MC members for their encouragement and support in this endeavor. The support of our convener, Professor Satish Kumar Sharma, former Professor of Sociology and Dean Faculty of Social Sciences, Himachal Pradesh University, Shimla, means a great deal to us. He has held key positions, including Director of the Population Research Center, Institute of Tribal Studies, and Canadian Studies Development Program. He has also been a fellow at the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla, a Shastri Indo-Canadian Fellow at the University of Toronto, and a visiting professor in universities across India and abroad. So his insights and vast experience have shaped this ad hoc group in a truly meaningful way. We are also very, very privileged to have Professor Maitreyee Chaudhuri as our guest of honor today. While she needs no introduction to this gathering of scholars, I would like to briefly highlight her contributions. Professor Maitreyee Chaudhuri, a renowned sociologist, has retired from the Center for the Study of Social Systems at Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. She currently serves as the president of the Indian Sociological Society. where her leadership is playing a key role in challenging conventional practices, opening up new areas of study, and introducing fresh, innovative teaching methods. Her forward thinking approach inspires us to think beyond established frameworks and explore new possibilities. And visual sociology is one among them. Her scholarship has made a significant contribution to understanding the fabric of public discourse in modern India, from early research on nationalism, colonialism, and feminism to more recent explorations of neoliberalism and the rise of majoritarianism. Her work has been both timely and transformative. Her academic interests span the sociology of gender, media studies, social and sociological theory, and pedagogy. In recent years, she has been at the forefront of analyzing how public discourse in India is being reshaped by the twin forces of neoliberalism and majoritarianism. As both a scholar and a citizen, she raises crucial questions on how we might communicate across divides to build understanding, trust, and fraternity in an increasingly polarized society. Beyond her rigorous scholarship, what makes Professor Chaudhuri truly inspiring is her ability to pose questions that resonate deeply with both academia and the wider public. She also initiated the blog Doing Sociology, a platform dedicated to cultivating the sociological imagination. I will not attempt to list her illustrious publications, as we all are familiar with their breadth and rigor. But on a personal note, I have known Professor Maitreyee Chaudhuri for more than 2 decades as a prolific researcher, a thought provoking teacher, and a wonderful human being. Please join me in warmly welcoming Professor Maitreyee Chaudhuri. Welcome, ma'am, to this event.
Thank you. Thank you.
I now request ma'am to share her thoughts on this initiative.
Thank you so much, Vaishali. Thank you so much, Professor Sharma. I think it's only right if Professor Sharma first comes in and then I could join. Would Professor Sharma would like, because, and then maybe, or however you wish to, maybe he comes in after I speak. Yeah. So I'll be very, very brief because I'm no expert on visual sociology. And I would like to speak a few lines on my broader interest of why I wanted, research committees to be active through the year, through these online, as Vaishali mentions, we live in a mediatized world. It's double-edged. It creates many problems and hurdles, but it also creates new opportunities. And I think it's important that we seize the opportunity. So we have seized the opportunity. The new website that we have developed in the Indian Sociological Society is part of that, of building up an e-learning resource where all these discussions, the one which will be done today between Ankita, Sebanti, moderated by Ipsita, will be uploaded. It also gives us an opportunity to connect the younger generation with established scholars. So we have people like Prof. Sharma and myself here, retired now, and we have very national academic body like the Indian Sociological Society, because we cut across these kinds and we are able to communicate. I will not speak more than this at this point, but the visual sociology is times, and I think it gives us an opportunity for younger scholars to engage with it and also look back at the history of sociology. That did they look at the visual in the past, or is it something completely new? Because that also is an important question, that could be taken into. And maybe it was thick descriptions were words, not visuals. Though you had a culture of photographs, not as smart as they are now in the old anthropological monographs, but maybe a kind of revisit to that and the new theoretical questions. I think Sebanti's work on the sensory would throw this up a lot more. So I encourage young scholars in this research committee, and I thank once again Professor Sharma for initiating and Professor Vaishali to actually put this in place. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
I'm very excited. There's 5 participants.
Yeah. We are also excited to see so many participants today. Thank you, ma'am, for always encouraging words. Next, I invite Dr. Ipsita Pradhan to begin today's program. She will be interviewing 2 scholars Dr.
Kumar.
Sebanti and Dr. Ankita, who
Join
are
the program that I forwarded yesterday.
actively engaged in the field of visual
Join the
sociology.
program. Visual
Let me just
sociology.
briefly
Join.
introduce Ipsita
Okay.
Pradhan. She received her doctorate degree in sociology from the University of Hyderabad, India in 2020. Her doctoral work, Understanding Gendered Labor in a Global Society, a study of women shop floor employees in a shopping mall in Hyderabad, studies women shop floor employees engaged in emotional and aesthetic labor in the spectacular spaces of the shopping mall. Very interesting work. Her research interests lie in the intersection of sociology of gender, labor, and urban sociology. Her recent publications look at emotional labor at workplaces, neoliberal subjectivities at work in contemporary India. Welcome, Ipsita. And before handing over the floor to Dr. Ipsita, I warmly invite everyone to take membership in this ad hoc group. The link and the email ID will be shared in the chat box shortly. Once you join, please drop us a message so we can add you to our WhatsApp group and continue the conversation there. Ipsita, over to you.
Hello, I welcome all of you and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you for coming. And 75 is like 81 now. We were not expecting this huge crowd. So thanks a lot for coming. And as Professor Vaishali here pointed out, this is the first event of the group. And although academic in nature, we want to have this session, keep this session in a conversational format. So all of you are welcome to join and participate in the discussion. You might, you can just raise your hand and then we will enable you to speak. So yes, let me introduce the speakers for today. And Dr. Sebanti is here among us. She is an assistant professor in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology at SRM University, Andhra Pradesh. Her areas of interest are anthropology of sound and senses, gendered labor, violence, and ecology. Her monograph, Choral Voices, Ethnographic Imaginations of Sound and Sacrality, was published by Bloomsbury Academic in 2023. Her collaborative film project, Kisur, as a part of Arts Research Practices Grants of India Foundation of the Arts, was completed in 2024. So welcome, Sebanti. And we also have amongst us Dr. Ankita Chatterjee. She completed her PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru University. Her discipline is sociology, and her research interests include ethnography, fieldwork methods, and visual anthropology, media and cultural studies, digital sociology, and gender and Dalit studies. She has published in well-known journals such as Visual Studies, South Asian Popular Culture, Studies in South Asian Film and Media. She is also a member of the Visual Studies group of the Indian Sociological Society and is currently writing on visual political communication, drawing up on her field insights from selected sites in Pune. She has taught at Christ University, Delhi NCR and Symbiosis University, Pune, and has realized that the importance of sociology as a discipline in fostering sociological imagination among students to reflect upon marginalized standpoints within the larger sociocultural and institutional context. I welcome you, Ankita.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
yes.
Yes. So am I audible?
Yes, you are.
So first of all, hello, Professor Sebanti. So first of all, we can make it like this, JNU पे जैसे होता था चाय पे चर्चा. So more like that, in understanding visual. And I would say it's an honor to talk in front of Professor Maitreyee Chaudhuri, because I was always the quiet one. And I remember coming to MPhil in JNU from Calcutta University, where I was invested in rote learning. Maitreyee Chaudhuri actually taught us to question, to have that critical thinking. So yeah, it feels nice today to speak in front of her. So yes, we can begin with, Dr. Ipsita, you can go ahead with some of the questions that you have in your mind, and simple. And I think Sebanti and I, we can talk about our journey with visual, because it was a crazy journey, especially during PhD and even now. But yeah, we are still trying, to keep up with understanding visuals.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And now, sure, I'm not sure if all of us have chai here with us, but I'm sure we can all have pani pe charcha. We can
Pani
all,
pe charcha.
Yeah,
Coffee pe
sure.
charcha.
yes. So the first question that is for both of you, maybe you can decide, like maybe Sebanti can start and then Ankita can join. So what is the visual in visual sociology?
So first of all, thank you everyone. I mean, it's a great privilege to just talk about your work and research with professors. And yeah, like Ankita said, that let's keep it conversational. So I think if we look at visual, then one thing that becomes important is how are we observing or how are we using the lens to study our object of the anthropological or sociological object of inquiry that we wish to engage with. And my supervisor, Roma Chatterjee, has worked with the idea of Pottochitro and, like her work on the Ladin Pata, which is basically about the 9/11 crisis. Pottochitro, scroll painting comes together with singing approaches and uses kind of a semiotic interpretation of the visual. Um, then just to draw a little bit of uh, our training here, and then I'll jump into the fun part of storytelling. And then we have, say, something like a piece by Renu Chaudhuri, who works on trying to understand Sunil Jana's documentary photography as a source, an archival source. And that kind of, it's sort of who was earlier a part of CPI before the Nehruvian era and then changed. I mean, he was expelled from CPI, and then how he sort of keeps his radical politics in capturing the photos where human suffering and the gaze of the Bengal famine in earlier cases, and then industry projects become important. So what I'm trying to say is the visual for a documentary photographer would be a little more different in how they are approaching the characters, the portrayals, and perhaps shaped by certain kind of ideologies, and how they then get represented in newspapers and then exhibitions. And then the visual in the sociology or in anthropology, which also sometimes come in my work. Mine is more sensory. So I work on choral music and as well as other kind of folk musical practices. And so, yeah, so it's sort of like how do we study the properties of these human relations and also locate ourselves, position ourselves in their lives, uh, being aware of our own, you know, socio-cultural histories as well as the people we want to engage with. I think I spoke too much. I'll just, yeah.
Yes. Ankita, would you like to?
Yeah, so thank you everyone. Thank you, Sebanti. That was a nice understanding of visual. So my journey of visual is quite different. So I worked under Professor Rakesh Kumar and also Sujit Parail. Sujit Parail was at that time taking a course on visual history, something related to visual history. So let me tell you what is visual to me. And this comes from my experiences in JNU. When I was in JNU, there were a lot of events of lynching and flogging of Muslims and Dalits. And there were student activists who were talking about these events. They didn't put up the images, but they were talking about those events. And obviously, those images were in circulation on new media. So for me, it was a very different thing that look at these images of violence are being circulated on new media. These are going viral. People are talking about it. So how do I study it? So when I first spoke to my supervisor, he's of the opinion that, okay, it will become political. But I was of the opinion that I understand Durkheim's social fact, it has to be collective, general. But even from feminist standpoint, we know that social facts are specific, the way we view social facts are also specific to certain groups, and there is an underlying objectivity to it. So I wanted to study the images, but I went too much into visual culture. I think that was the first, some of the books, Roland Barthes and how to look at images and all these things. But later I realized that as a sociologist, I have to take these images to people who are actually producing counter images or protest symbols, if you can say protest images in response to these images. So I interviewed in Delhi. I interviewed student activists, documentary makers. For example, Not in My Name, Lynched Nation, and I have read a lot of representation of images. All of you can see it. For example, Abu Ghraib. There has been a lot of writing on Abu Ghraib, the way bodies are presented, the African American lynching, the Iraq War, the abjection of the body, and even right now we see the banality of destructive images, when it comes to the Gaza war. So, as in a contemporary situation like this, how do we see these images? And there were many themes that I came up with. For example, how images are juxtaposed for actants, then memories affect how affect is understood through those images, how memories are constructed, because images are not only something we see, but it also evokes memories based on our biography. So, yes, I think that right now I'm also going to some extent to visuals, especially on new media, because there has been a lot of writing on new media and images in circulation, and how, there is a political economy of media where images are banned, they are, not being shown. At the same time, there are spaces, loopholes where images can be circulated and all. So my whole understanding about materiality of the image is looking at new media and the images. Yes.
Thank you. So do we have any observations or any any point that amongst the audience, if you want to add some points? Or if you have questions for our speakers?
They can also send their comments and observations or questions in chat box. We can read it out.
Yeah.
You can go ahead.
Yes, yes. So I think this is something that Sebanti also talked about, like touched upon when she started the discussion. So how is the visual in sociology different from visual studied in other disciplines? I think this would also help our young scholars to think about visual sociology.
Right. So, for example, like, of course, I did my MPhil from CSSC again. So, Tapati Go Thakurta works on visual culture. So, we were also, introduced to visual culture as a sort of way of studying art history and distinguishing it, like her work on Durga Pujo, pandals, and Barwadi Pujo, Sharbojanin Pujo, and all of that. So it sort of talks about how art students were involved into the making, and then to the theme pujo, and then who are the people actually managing the products. But it also does that from an art history perspective in some ways. But then when I go into my kind of engagement and how I locate my own work also, if we look at what Sarah Pink is trying to say about emplacing oneself, in the sensorial and the social world of understanding our anthropological landscape and how we engage with it. So that's something there. Then there is Stephen Feld and Basso, and and this is not just like even Ankita was talking about how war zones can also become points of sensorial encounter, like studies on in Meghalaya and Bangladesh border, and what is the barbed wire, and how that kind of evokes certain senses, both in terms of sounds, but also what if the fence moves from this part of the border to the other side of the border? Then visually, where does the body, after it's gone, where does the corpse lie? And this whole problem of statelessness, how do we deal with it? So it's not just there, and right now we are in the midst of genocide going on. So whatever is going on in Gaza, like and Farah Nabluski's film, for instance, The Present is a very nice way, say as a classroom aid. Then it becomes a good classroom aid to at least show them what is this kind of border torture for a civilian, where the protagonist is just wanting to buy a refrigerator, and the kind of trials and tribunals, which shows that this kind of a border surveillance is something that is common to every kind of these kind of problems. So what I'm trying to say is that it's and I don't know, but I think when we are now dealing with a very different generation of students, people like some kind of easy reference point which they can relate to apart from the heavy readings that we are giving. So in some ways, then we are always prepared with certain advertisements, and visual sociology also talks about picking up matrimonial ads, or trying to pick up, like even Professor Vaishali was telling in the beginning, like how TikTok memes are sort of revolving around our lives, and making influencers are such a big deal. Like they are giving fake news or makeup tips or whatever it is. I mean, what I'm trying to say is then sociology appropriates and also melds with these other kind of thinking through and working with. That's how I see. And right now with NEP and everything is suddenly becoming interdisciplinary. Oh, like where are our roots? So I don't know.
Ankita?
Yes, so the understanding is how visual sociology or anthropology is different from the visual culture. I had the same problem. So for me, when I was looking at these visuals, I was looking on the screen, right, on digital media. Now, if I take digital media as a field is wide, right? The way in anthropology we have been told about the field is secluded. The earlier anthropologists, they would go to a community, they'll study the community, they'll take pictures as evidence that they have gone and done field work. So for me, my field became the online space, the digital media. But then when I went to my supervisor and said that digital media is vast, how can you study so many memes? How can you study, so many visuals? You have to select some visuals. So that's the reason why I selected those events. And I just like following the object, which we are now understanding in anthropology, that it's very important to follow the objects, because objects and images are not static. In the same way, I also followed the images and saw that how it is being responded both online and offline. So the digital and the material world is together. So when we study online is not separate from offline. They are both together. And sometimes because they are together and they are interacting, there can be some new possibilities. And if we talk about how visuals have been studied, so we had printed calendar study by Patricia Oberoi. Charu Gupta has written on Dalit women, and their dressing style. Uh, uh, wait, Christopher Pine has studied Hindu mythologies and characters that are reinvented in various images and portrait studies also. So there have been all these studies, but you have to understand those images were printed images. In a digital world, where images are in circulation and there are so many images that the attention span is reducing, how do you understand, images? Or is it like what Sarah Pink or Christopher Hines said that from the host of images, you have to understand which are the themes that are being generated, common themes which are being generated, and study that. So yeah, it has been difficult because how to understand digital media as a field and how to study visual in digital media is also difficult. At times I also find it very difficult because images are going here and there. They are being broadly circulated, but I think it's a challenge right now to look at memes, to look at protest symbols, to look at like stand-up comedy, especially how they are being circulated. So I think it's interesting right now because the horizon is widening. Yes.
So the next question, and there are some questions we have in the chat box. I think these three are related. So we know that observation is a crucial tool and or process in sociological research. Observation is anyways, the intrinsic part of sociological research. So in what ways is visual sociology different then?
Yeah. So when I look at in my own work, when I was doing my PhD, which was, say, studying choirs, and I looked at Shillong Chamber Choir and how they sort of, and it became like a reality TV show. And from the reality TV show, they sort of presented something like a Bollywoodized choral rendition. And so it was more about the look and feel. It was not just about what we are hearing, but also about what you're watching. So for example, you know, what is the kind of temperament, and what is the kind of stage decoration, what is the kind of audience that they are doing, what is the kind of medley that is coming through, why Bollywood. If they are coming from the tribal part of Meghalaya, then how are they also bringing in their indigenous elements? I see questions about hegemony of powerful, dominant, and breaking stereotypes about visual representation in the chat box. So one thing is that uh, class is something that you know, I mean, just like caste, class is another uh, marker of inequality and also shows us the access. So, access to digital world, access to any kind of smart objects or devices, that itself is a sign of privilege. And then I have studied Western music. So then trying to, also, it's not something that I am currently studying folk music, but I have previously studied, Western music, and takes up Western music, and then who practices it. Those kind of questions also become, it's a class affluent issue that come up. And then what happens is there is a localized and indigenous kind of interpretation of musical genre, and also the visual kind of expectation. So for example, why would I mean, if there is a choir, say, from the Northeast, or if there is a choir from Goa, they would expect certain kind of attire to understand where they are from, right? And that would give them a sense of geography, that sense of location, that how we are in place, how our subjects and our informants who are constantly helping us work through a certain kind of narrative are also presented in this whole picture. Then the other thing, now I'm studying Gumart, which is like about an animal skin, in an instrument made with the membrane of monitor lizard, which is banned. Then the question of who makes the instrument, who plays the instrument, and what happens when it becomes a state heritage. Then there is a question of who appropriates whose music, and why was it not relevant before. So obviously, it's not blind to any of these social inequalities, caste, class, tribe, and different kinds of, ethnic imaginations. However, what happens is, experience, I come from, my name suggests that I am full of privilege, right? So then my telling of the story, what does it do? And as then, what is the outsider's perspective? How do we then talk about things? How can we think about different ways of sharing knowledge, and also trying to find a way to tell it together? And yeah, so it's also about like collaborative ethnographic approaches, where you actually collaborate with a local scholar, with a local informant, and try to think together and try to write together. So these are also some methodological approaches that are encouraged. And I think that is where my work is going towards at this moment. So yeah.
Yes. Ankita?
Uh, yeah, even I could see certain questions. So, how can visual sociology help us to understand the role of media? I think visual sociology can actually help us to understand the role of social media, because unlike there have been people who have studied only visuals on new media, but we have to understand what does new media suggest. Convergence culture, right? Participatory democracy, some people have called it, for example, Henry Jenkins. But we also know that there are various restrictions, and there is the political economy of new media. So one aspect is that you can look at the visuals, through, as Professor Sebanti is saying, social semiotics. You can study the visuals, through other method, discourse analysis, you can study visual, or by qualitative understanding, by going to the participants or a field. As a field also, you can study the visual, and the field will be both. For example, when I concentrated on the events, I actually intertwined both the offline and the online, and saw how these images were traveling. So the images, we have to understand, visuals are not static, especially at the time of new media, where there's so much of interaction. At the same time, software tools, to tweak images, to tweak visuals, to manufacture or create new contents, especially by the users. You have to be very focused on the kind of visuals that you are looking at, because these are the users who are using it, creating content. So it's interesting also. For example, if you understand memes and youth, it can become a new topic, what the youth want. For example, recently when I was looking at menstrual problem, I was looking at the memes and understanding that how in my previous generation, related to my parents, they didn't understand anything about menstrual cycle, period leave, any problems with hormones that women go through. But look at the memes right now. They are extremely, people are aware about it, and they come up with a lot of terms. For example, body positivity, menstrual hygiene, and maybe it's a very small class of people. I'm not saying I'm aware of the digital divide. It's a very small class of people, class and caste of people. But within that also we can study. Also, one another question also someone has asked about hegemony. Wait, different concepts in somewhere are
Ankita,
impacted by
Ankita,
economy. Yes,
we
yes,
have this question from Narendra Kumar. I think that is really
yes,
interesting. Maybe you can talk about your work on the flex banners,
yes.
uh,
Yeah,
on
yeah. So,
Ambedkar flex banners. So I think
Ambedkar,
that
yeah.
question
So
perfect would
when, yeah, yeah, yeah. So when I was in Pune, there were many banners on Ambedkar, and some of the images were very, I won't say weird. Some of the images I haven't witnessed, like Ambedkar sitting on a throne, and there's a tiger at the back, or Ambedkar with a book, or Ambedkar coming out of a car. And there were other things about Bap Manush. Bap Manush means Ambedkar is the father. So there were different ways. Ambedkar on a horse, riding on a horse. So these different imaginations of Ambedkar really piqued my interest. So I actually went to the banner shops to understand that how these youth, these organizations, local organizations, are actually using AI to develop an imagination of Ambedkar, which is more like Gen Z right now, related, where the youth can identify. But at the same time, with those images, they are also aware and conscious of the fact. See, it's not only, I understand this whole debate between visual symbols and materiality, and I get into a fight with this, but we also have to understand that with these banners, with DJ music of Ambedkar during Ambedkar Jayanti, there's a lot of emphasis on Ambedkar's constitution, on making libraries for Dalit students actually to clear UPSC, to and other community work also. So yeah, so for me, it's a very good understanding. They are very scared of AI, and I know the political economy of AI and what AI is doing. But you have to understand that how communities, local communities, are also using AI to define a new imagination of Ambedkar.
Yes. And do you think this also, to go to Ramandeep's question, does it also challenge dominant narratives?
Definitely, which standpoint you are taking, right? If you are taking the, like, we have understand, if you are using the concepts, of standpoint feminism, it, even being a Savarna woman, even being from a privileged caste, I have to understand which concepts I am taking, whose insights I am taking. And obviously, as Professor Sebanti has said, that it's not my research. So collaborative ethnography, giving credit to the people, knowledge to the people, that is also important. So yes.
Yes. There are a couple of other questions in the chat box. We will come to it. Okay.
Yeah. And please, Ankita, don't call me Professor Sebanti, then I'll also call you Professor Ankita.
Yeah, definitely. I won't call you that.
Yes. So how have you extended your own work on visual sociology in your current research?
Yeah, so as I was telling, that was connected to my first, response to the earlier questions, but I'm also part of a feminism PhD project of someone who is based out of UK. And what she does is trying to understand women of community music researchers and practitioners. And we are people from all over different parts of the globe. I am from India, and there are people from Canada, there are people from UK, there are people from South Korea, so on and so forth. So it's like there are different people. And right now we are trying to work on this idea of an autoethnographic recording of what we do, because we meet every month as a part of her collaborative PhD. We meet every month, and Nicola, her name is Nicola Mactia, and so we talk about different things, how art can be resistance, what are we doing as art researchers, as music makers, music practitioners, and also how does our social geography inform our choices, inform our navigation towards certain things. So, and she also like, her method is also feminist critical inquiry, and trying to understand it from like, in a way, standpoint theory, yes, but also trying to arrive at what is how to sort of how do we call ourselves a collective also. So there's this contention between really doing a collaborative work, and then how do we also make it feminist, and then there are strands of feminist movement, so that becomes more complicated then. So it opens another Pandora's box. So now there was a question specifically directed at my work, I think somewhere I found.
Yes, Pratich's questions.
Yeah. So I'll just touch upon it. So field and method. So the thing is, I always look at sensorial practices as a lens to understand, and that informs my ethnography. So that is a way I look at it. But visual as a field probably incorporates all kinds of ways other disciplines might also want to interpret it. Not just the sociology as a field or anthropology as a field, but maybe documentary filmmaking, maybe art history, maybe urban geography, those kind of things. And even because um, I have always worked on live music, so the concept of live music is very visual, so that aspect always urged me to do documentation, and that's how the idea of a documentary also came up. And that's how, when I went to Meghalaya and Mizoram, I also tried to understand, and it story told. I am just an onlooker, and it is more like having the interviews and understanding the role of faith in making sense of their art form. It's sort of like that. So it's a Christian life world trying to understand what is the way rituals become part of not just the sacred but the everyday, and how that kind of gives or forms a kind of community, a kind of shared history in a way. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'll come back to things later.
Yes, no,
I think.
so just a related question. Like when you said live music is very visual, what do you mean by that?
So because live music, like when we want to go for a concert, we can always listen to to Coldplay's song on on playing, I mean, on my Spotify or on YouTube or somewhere. But it's a different matter when there is a concert out there, and not because there was a scandal recently where somebody was found cheating in the Coldplay concert, but generally people would want to go and attend a concert because of the to witness it. And then also it is also about experiencing something. And I think COVID has changed our notion of like how we are now conceiving being in different parts of the world, doing an online kind of conversation and evolving somewhere. Um, but I mean, live music made sense also because of the tries to capture certain essence of, say, when I say Shillong Chamber Choir does a Bollywood Broadway, that means they are trying to capture a certain aesthetic that is going to appeal to a larger audience in India, as well as probably a global audience as well. So this locality and globality becomes another big way of looking at things, because we are always, as anthropologists, I think whatever we do, we are always trying to understand a localized way of arriving at meanings, at reflection. So yeah.
Yes, Ankita, would you like to contribute to this?
There's an interesting question by someone. When we talk about visual, there is a possibility that the photos or videos can be highly edited, staged, or manipulated. How can visual sociology separate an image as real evidence and when it is more of a story or interpretation? First of all, I want to tell you that even when we click a picture, we can't just be sure that this is reality. Even when we see photographs, photographs have been framed, right? We have taken a frame and then we have clicked picture. So there is this understanding that, okay, the photographs are real, because it has been taken, but even the standpoint of the photographer has to be taken into account. Right now there are many visuals which are edited, which are used for hate speech, which are manipulated also. I think in the recently, when I was reading about this restless protest movement, I think to de-symbolize their protest movement, there were these fake photographs of the wrestlers, women wrestlers, smiling when they were detained. These were circulated and then they were taken down on Twitter. So these examples will be there, right? For people who are scholars who are doing visual sociology, you have to understand that how these images make meaning in groups of people. So you have to take these images, or you have to see what is the purpose behind these images, what are these images used, what is being served, which, for example, which group of people. Okay, when it comes to hate speech, when it comes to trolling, cyber trolling, when it comes to sexist comments, when it comes to other ways of representing women or representing any class or caste of people or group of people, that how they are being created. So that reflects or shed light into the understanding of what is the understanding, of generating those visuals. So yeah, let it be manipulated, let it be, that is our whole understanding. We are not over here to see, okay, yeah, we are here to understand, okay, these are manipulated, these are edited, but we also have, as a sociologist, go behind and understand the human action, the biography, the whole social relation behind creation of these images right now. Okay.
Yeah, I think that is where Adrita's comment makes more sense. Like she says, media and communication field work on these areas as well. So I think then as a follow-up
Yes,
question
definitely.
of you would
Definitely.
be,
It's an interdisciplinary, like Professor, sorry, Sebanti has said, sorry, not Professor, Sebanti has said, like I could understand that she has brought a lot of perspective. It's not only about visual, but it's about lived experiences, phenomenology, and also feminist perspective. And maybe right now with this standpoint, and I think Sandra Harding has said something about the mixture of subjectivity and objectivity, and she tried to balance it, that how we can have an objective understanding even within these subjective experiences. For example, sociological imagination or phenomenology, our biography are not only of our own, it interacts with social structures, right? So even though as a woman, I would be having some experiences. Maybe the degree will be different as an upper caste woman, but related to my gender, I will be having some experiences, okay, related to other aspect as a woman. So this is an objective reality. So we also have to find the objective reality with the narration of the subjectivities, that how people process those uh, social structures. Not everyone processes it in a same way, so there are other factors which comes, so those are very important.
yeah.
I hope
So
I'm making sense.
yes, Sonam has sent a
Mm,
direct message to me. I think this is what relates to the point that you were talking about right now. What
mm,
about sexist humor, specifically memes on social media platforms like Instagram? How
mm.
can one study it through visual sociology? And what if we want to add the other way representation of sexist humors on women, like in the
Mm,
Kapil Sharma show?
mm. Yeah, I think that will be a wonderful. So you have to, it could be content analysis. You can also take the sexist humor, to groups of women, for example, college students, and see how they are reacting. What are their views on those sexist humor, especially boys or, of that age? What do they think about it? For example, in my class, when I was teaching a student, when I used to talk about gender, and they would tell that, oh, gender, all this thing like feminazi and all this thing, and I used to be taken aback. And then their podcast was beer bicep or something. So we also have to understand that, what are these suddenly these misogynist comments which are coming up. There have been sexist comments, there have been a backlash against feminism, which I can understand, in my two institutions, LGBTQ and feminism, there have been a backlash. Caste is never questioned, much. Even if we bring the Dalit women perspective, it is not questioned. And I think these are happening more in private universities right now because there is less space for expression. But yes, as a researcher, what you can do, you can get out of this institution, you can carry those fieldwork, you can understand the sexist jokes, you can understand the countering of those sexist jokes by some people, and you can interview the youth and understand that, what they are going through, youth culture and youth. There has been less study on the youth culture, that what do they understand by the sexist joke, how they are countering it in their own way, are they countering it, what is the whole understanding, about gender or women or feminism in their group.
Uh, Let me go to the next question, and then we have a couple of more questions, very interesting questions in the chat box. Let me first, complete this set, and then we will go to the chat questions in the chat box. So, how diverse is research on visual sociology, and what is the future of visual sociology as an interdisciplinary subject? Maybe Sebanti can.
So I think we have all already talked about this interdisciplinary borrowing and how we are heading there, because Also, a lot of people have said that media studies and sociology are very much interlinked. It is true in some ways, because we are studying an aspect of media, and media involves all our sights, and I mean all the five senses in a way. So, right? So it will have, and visual is the most dominant of all, our sensory experiences, as David Howes says, that move away from just the visual and let us look at other kind of senses. And that's how sensory ethnography, or study of senses, and not just, I also used to work primarily on sound. So then how do we mix or engage with different kinds of senses? For example, Shivani Kapoor's work on tanneries touch upon the, in Kanpur, talks about how we can look at sensory aspects of a tannery, right? And the question of caste, and the question of labor, and the question of neighborhood, that is witnessing all of these making, that comes into question. Then Ishita Day's work on domestic and associated stench and smell and all of that. I'm just talking about some contemporary work which is trying to use sensory sort of elements in work. And also in terms of, like I said, like Khadija Amanda, she's a postdoctoral student, like, but her work is also listening to sounds of, how to listen to the sounds of the city of Hyderabad, right? So, and that is looking at different aspects, not, and so, I think when we look at protest march and any kind of walks or these kind of things, it also becomes a way to enter into an engagement with an ongoing problem, an issue, and how we are then tackling with it head on. So yeah, there is a theoretical, or there is an empirical way of being there, and primarily then how are we then engaging with this whole corpus of senses. I would say that I am not only a visual or a sound, I am working to engage with all our senses. So, and yeah, even in violence, because even I have done little work with acid attack survivors in Bengal, and even with their kind of narrative about how to engage with pain and suffering, and sort of not just abuse, but also kind of a social exclusion and abandonment. And then why, again, in the situation of Women's Commission or in the situation of legal apparatus, is the problem of an acid attack survivor more important, or a trafficked child, or a rape victim? Now, these are becomes other kind of things, and uh, visuality and sensorial kind of observation then becomes, I mean, violence is not very far from just aesthetics. I mean, whenever we are talking about visual, it's, I just want to make clear, because we've been talking about aesthetics a lot throughout, but violence is very much part of it. And also violence is also there in, in appropriation, in representation, in misrepresentation, and who is getting where. And again, the question of power that sort of, works through everything. So yeah, that's all, like, yeah.
Ankita?
Yeah, as Sebanti said, it is multisensorial, visual. So even when I was working with the visuals of lynching and flogging, so it was not only, I didn't go with the visuals, by the way, because somewhere I thought it was, and not with my discussion with my supervisor, I thought it's unethical to show these visuals to uh, respondents, because you don't know what will trigger them. But at the same time, I would talk about the events. So I understand there is this method called photo elicitation method, But when we are showing visuals of famine, when we are showing visuals of, like even the Manipur women, that visual where the Manipur incident which happened, I think in 2023 or 24, and even when we are showing visuals of lynching and flogging, how appropriate it is there a power relation in the way you are simply showing the visual to your respondents? So and especially when you are, there are some people, academicians who show them actually to the people, to other academicians, so what kind of power relation does it play when you show these visuals, which are like where the person has been dehumanized or the person is naked? That aspect is important. So I took the events and I asked about the events, and with those events I realized that yeah, it's not only about seeing the visual, but it also triggers or it makes the person understand about his lived experience, what he has gone through. So it's related with affect, it is related with memory, it is related with community solidarity at the same time. So visual and uh, also about the sound aspect here, I want to tell Sebanti that when it comes to visual of violence, I think many people remember the sound. When they saw, some of the respondents saw the visual, they remember the sound, and what did they feel about the sound? But feeling or affect, I know it's very difficult to put it in words, but we still, as academicians, we have to still put it in words, looking at the biography of the person or the understanding or the silence. We have to read the silences, we have to read the pause, we have to read the nothingness sometimes in their eyes when we hear about all these incidents which are happening. So yeah, visual is not only visual, as Sebanti been talking, visual is much more than that. But at the same time, as a researcher, we have to confine ourselves, into what are we, studying. For example, are we studying political as visuals as symbols? For example, my banners, I'm just studying it as symbols, and then I am coming up with other aspects also, that how the different imagination of Ambedkar is being created. So yeah, the future of visual sociology is huge. Institutionally, I don't know, but yeah, if we as academicians can all come together and help each other, give good, keep this kind of sessions, give good ideas, help each other, and just reach out as sociologists, because we know our position as sociologists in private institution. I think that would really help, visual sociology, and not only visual sociology, gender, media studies, feminism, to give good research input, or to give good research. Yes.
And there is an interesting question here. Maybe I would like Professor Vaishali also to come in here. We have a question from Jhimli Bhattacharjee. She says, do you not think that visual sociology is a method of study only?
Yeah, Ankita, Sebanti, you go ahead. I'll join. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just I think even art, like there is Rahi Punya Shloka, who uses art to talk about Ambedkarite movement, and also Ambedkarite expression. So that itself is very visual, and he is doing exhibitions through his work and all of that. And then you also have people like, say, Samuel, who has come up with this science fiction book. So I mean, is visual a method? But the visuals can also get into this kind of graphic novel, a comic fiction, a science fiction, and it can draw on ideals of Dalit ideology and other kind of marginalized problems. So again, like I said, there are different people engaging with different kinds of questions. And I lost track. What was I talking about?
But is it only a method? Is
Yeah,
visual sociology only a method?
yeah. So I think it is more than a method. It is also how we method, like even Ankita was trying to say, we always have to as researchers, unfortunately, we cannot always satisfy everyone's curiosity and question, because we are also limited and we have our way of at least tackling one question. While we are tackling that question, then it becomes that if I'm using the visual, say yesterday there was an article in Scroll about stamps and Indian music, how through different kinds of postage stamps, a nation building method of Indian music, can be studied. So now, so then stamps are sources, then visual becomes a source for historical inquiry. So it is a method, but it is also then it is also what we see as in terms of graffiti paintings, in terms of exhibitions, in terms of artwork. It can be a mode of expression, it can be a method, it can be a way of experiencing or understanding the social realities, maybe. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I fully agree with what Sebanti is saying, and
I think, Professor
yeah,
Vaishali,
sir, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
May I just add to the explanation being given? Visual is not only a method, it's also a text. Because what we need to do in understanding the visual is to understand the content of the visual. And even, I would say, the color scheme used in a particular visual expression also has a lot of meaning to tell. And for this, we also need to go into structural anthropology, like Malinowski talks about the signals, the color, red color, and all those things. So it's in that way it's a text also. But to read the text, we must also understand the visual, not only in terms of what appears, but also in terms of its analytical classification. What all constitutes visual? Because it's not just understanding the reality, but also to understand the reality of the social reality, because it has always binaries. What is real is also unreal to certain section, as these two young scholars have already been saying that there are things which are put up from political ideological angle to achieve certain kind of goals. So there are always binaries which exist, and we have to therefore analyze the visuals in the context of time and space, and therefore also understand visual not as a static object, but also how the visual has been shaped through the conditions which exist in the society. So that's what will constitute the text. And therefore, when as a visual student of visual sociology, we are trying to understand it. So we are also not only evolving a method, but also evolving a text, which helps us in the interpretation and all that. So that's all for the time being. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. And just borrowing from Sebanti and Professor Sharma, I think yes, it is a method, no doubt, but also it is learning, how meanings are generated, and which kind of meanings and how power is displayed through these meanings. Because the minute we start reading sign and syntax of the visual, I think it becomes very clear that what kind of meaning it is generated. As Sir said, what is the time and context of that particular visual. So it is more than method, I feel, where definitely uh, the way power is embedded in those meanings can be studied through that, and it is an analytical tool in that sense. So You have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
I just wanted to I just wanted to add one more thing is that what Sir said is visuals are constantly changing. It's not static. So that is something which I have also seen on new media, that when you see the visuals, there are content creators, there is convergence culture, there's more opportunities for users to create new contents. And there are obviously censorship also, more censorship. And obviously, new media has its own political economy and how they are being directed or regulated by the present government. So, keeping all this aspect into account, we need to see that how the visuals, even the content, and how it is, we have to study the content and how it is being modified.
Yeah.
We have a question from our young student, Preeti. I'll just read it out. Since visual content is open to subjective interpretation, how is objectivity ensured in visual sociology research? Ankita, would you like to go for this?
Yes, there is subjective interpretation. It is very important. So, when I am looking at some of the visuals, I try to understand the underlying generalized themes and patterns. That is how I understand the objectivity. There can be many visuals, but which are the underlying themes of the visuals? That is very important. Even through the subjective understanding, there is objectivity, because I am going, for example, when it came to understanding the banners of Ambedkar as a political icon, I went to people who were making those banners, shopkeepers. So they were mostly from the Dalit caste. They call themselves neo-Buddhist at the same time. They call themselves Hindu Mahars and all. Different, but they are from the Dalit background. That they, even though their subjective experiences are different, you know what the group has gone through and how there is a new imagination of Ambedkar based on technology. So it mostly brings out this post-humanist thing that humans and machines or even technologies are not separate, but sometimes with the coming of technologies and humans, there can be newer possibilities. So, so that aspect is objectivity. You can look at the objectivity like that. So it's not just one perspective or other perspective. It's just the generalized understanding. In that way, you can look at the objectivity in visual sociology.
Okay. We
Yes.
have a very interesting comment from Santosh. While the term visual sociology appears to reflect a Eurocentric bias by prioritizing vision as the dominant mode of understanding the world, how might the discipline be expanded by incorporating other sensory modalities, such as touch and other non-visual or non-auditory senses, in the analysis of social phenomena? Could you also suggest keywords that emphasize these alternative sensory approaches within sociology or related disciplines?
I think there have been, as Sebanti, we have already spoken that visuals are not only about vision, but it's also about memories. It's about affect. It's about collective solidarity. It's about agitation. It is about representation. It is about questioning that representation and identity. You know, questioning the identity or re-representing the identity. So yes, I when I was studying my PhD and when I was doing it, I came across people who have written on visual ethnography and doing sensory ethnography by Sarah Ping, Christopher Hine. You can some of you can read all these books. At the same time, there have been many work where it says, and we have both been saying that it's not only visual, and visual has been the dominant paradigm. We understand that because anthropological work, how the dominant race came about. So it was all visually, given to us, anthropomorphic understanding of visuality. But then we are trying to expand it, and there have been scholars who have expanded it to understand the multi-sensorial thing. Also, I don't know about this, but I think it would be interesting to understand within disability studies. It just came, through discussion that when it comes to touch disability studies, visual and touch and everything, how it is being portrayed over there. But it just came to my mind, because I have been reading a few of the articles in disability studies to understand how they perceive or visualize things or understand touch, understand senses, so maybe this will be a new, not new, it can be an interesting thing to study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to jump in, and there is also, taste. So we cannot leave behind, classification of food, which also brings in questions of caste immediately, and, inequality. So there is Dolly Kikon's work, on, say, how can bamboo shoot and fermentation, just to give an example, how that sort of becomes a way to look at, one is where is the gendering of labor in the fermentation process, and then there is also this idea of smell, and so you also see those kind of association, then, this food is not part of a dominant idea of a cuisine, or what happens then. So I mean, also, that's not just, I'm just saying that food is one other way, and there is an ad hoc group on food studies, let alone, so you can explore more sensory ideas there. But generally, apart from, Sense and Society is a very good journal where you can find different works who are engaging with sensorial approaches, and in terms of thinking through different kinds of sight, touch, smell, sound, and all of this. Also, I mean, I was going to say something, but yeah,
I think,
yeah.
Sebanti, the article which you are talking about, I think the order of segregation, Jasmeet S. Sira, I think she has written, I think, a wonderful piece on how through order, like the caste is associated, the order affect caste boundaries and associate. I think that is also interesting. Like,
That is,
when it comes to taste, when it comes to senses, when it comes to touch, who are being shown, who are being represented, who are being deconstructed. So all these things, and what kind of effect it has on the body when they see someone, for example, even if for example, even in a basti like Lohegao basti, when they have their own Ambedkar Bhavan, own space to congregate, own their political icon Ambedkar, to come during Ambedkar Jayanti. So what kind of sensorial effect, or what kind of understanding or meaning it creates in them? It's a visual, right? The statue is a visual, but the effect it has on the people. So those are very interesting, and that's why we both have been saying that visual is not only visual, but visual is multisensorial. And yeah, so that's the way we can go with visual.
Yeah,
Ankita, can
and
you type in, just a minute, can you type in the reading in
yeah,
the chat box?
We can make I think we can, towards the end, we can make a list of writing. Like, I think both
we
of
can
us can
share
make a
it.
list of writing and share it with others.
Yeah. And and also I think, alternative kind of engagement, like, casteless collective music forums. I mean, that's also a way of,
Yes.
like, how you're making music, and that is also talking about representation of a different kind. So then what kind of music are we listening to? Or then who engages, and those kind of things also become important, how they are being ginimahi, or those kind of, like, somebody asked about going, you only asked me about going to concert and just listening. Then how do we feel different registers of music or different registers of sound, and that how they also open up a whole new idea, like, what does it mean to listen to an, song about reservation then, and it becomes political in that moment, right? So then those kind of things also, sensory kind of medias have that thing, yeah.
I
I
think this
just
also
jump in,
answers. Yes.
Ipsita, for a moment,
Yes.
because I was listening. Thank you so much for this fabulous conversation. So Professor Sharma mentioned about the text. I'm an old-fashioned sociologist, so I'd like to mention about context. Okay, so the whole question about in the contemporary, where say it becomes very difficult to give a lecture without a PPT or without visuals, or even advertising an RC lecture without the visual. Okay, so some group was trying to circulate a long 2-page note. Nobody was reading it unless you had pictures. Okay, so it changes our subjectivity. So we are using emojis, and I find it easier to type than to use emojis. It leads to a different kind. Now, this is a context specific change which has taken place from an earlier period. So the visual is therefore not just a method. The visual is social. It gets socially constituted. It's historical at different points. You're talking about the political and the contemporary, but right through all social movements, you've had music. You've had Ipsita, you had music during the national movement, you had theater movement. It has been part and parcel of any kind of resistance. And in the contemporary, it has also been used by the dominant groups. You see, it could be state, it could be the market. So far as the methods are concerned, because I remember when I started first working on advertisement, one kind of method to study the visual would be from the more structuralist tradition, where you look at the text in itself and the part of the text and its relationship to each other. But say somebody like me, I would look at it more in terms of the three elements of who produces it, the text itself, and who consumes it. Because it's the three which together, goes in. So there are many, so it's fascinating. There are many trends within the visual. And I'm so glad that both in your presentation, conversations, intervention, as well as the chat discussion, all of this came through. I'm not going to take more time, but thank you very, very much for this absolutely amazing discussion.
Yes, I think this also answers Dr. Nisar's question, like that this is what we have been, talking about. Like I think in today's conversation, we broadened this idea of visual sociology, that visual is, we went beyond this commonsensical understanding of what the visual is. At least sociologically, it means much more. So, yeah, just to wrap up quickly, then, yes, so one of the points was that we broadened the understanding of the visual, and we also probably understood in the works of Ankita and Sebanti that it is not only, visual is not only about, the way of conducting research, but also how you are talking about your research, how you're disseminating your research. So thank you both of you for giving us the time, and I'm really happy because I got to be part of this, because I am very new to visual sociology, so this is all very interesting to me.
Yeah,
Thank
you, Ipsita. You have been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And these are the real questions which Ipsita had, so it's not manipulated.
Thank you so much. Ipsita.
Vaishali, ma'am, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ipsita. It was a wonderful discussion. As Maitreyee ma'am said, very, very interesting, intriguing, and gave a lot of information about visuals. I hope that participants are also getting benefited by this discussion. Just to conclude our discussion, I would like to invite our convener, Professor Satish Sharma, to give his concluding remarks on the discussion on this whole idea of ad hoc group on visual sociology. Sir, please. Professor Sharma?
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So first of all, I would like to put on record our sincere thanks and gratitude to Professor Maitreyee Chaudhuri, President of the Indian Sociological Society, and Professor P.S. Vivek, with whom I had a couple of meetings, and we discussed visual sociology at length. And we also thank both the President and the Treasurer, Professor Vivek, for bringing Professor Vaishali and me on a common platform to exchange our ideas and put forward this proposal. And then they took a lot of pains to get it through from the Indian Sociological Society's Management Committee. And we therefore also thank the Secretary of the Indian Sociological Society, Professor Shweta Prasad, and all the members of the Managing Committee with whose support this proposal was accepted, and now we are uh, 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 doing visual sociology. And secondly, I would also like to put on record our appreciation for the very, very nice interactive session enriched by both the speakers and the mediator, and also by the participants by putting very good questions and queries, and which were also very ably answered by both the speakers. So, I'll just be very brief because it has already been quite some time. So, in my personal opinion, understanding visual sociology and doing visual sociology must begin with how and why a visual come into being. And when I look at it that basically things exist in the society. Visual sociology has been part of sociological understanding ever since the inception of sociology. Rather, I would like to go back to uh, the Western scholarship, where Plato also talked about images, how the images are constructed, and how the questions of incompatibility and compatibility arise, and how the questions between quality and quantity arise. And then all these questions lead to development of certain kind of methodology, and where we also have to go into intentionality, as well as the superficiality of the visuals. And that's why I said that there are binaries which coexist, and therefore, as a visual sociologist, we have to therefore investigate into what is the reality of what is being presented as real. And therefore, analytically, we must also understand visuals in terms of expressions which include the poetics, which also include dramatics, and which also include uh, what we say visual art, and all these dimensions, therefore, also become interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. And any field we try to explore, so all these questions, all these approaches are beneficial in understanding. So, with my sincere thanks to Professor Vaishali, who has done all the work, and to organize this event, because I have been all the time almost absent from, and she has been doing all that.
No,
And
he is
thank you very
always
much.
there, available on
And
phone and guiding us. So,
I also thank the organizer, mediator. Thank you very much. And we hope that, as Professor Vaishali has already requested, that more and more members will join us, and uh, this ad hoc group will ultimately become research committee, a vibrant research committee, and a model kind of research committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your comments. We just before we close, we have an exciting announcement. The ad hoc group on visual sociology will soon launch a visuals competition on the theme of the 50th AISC, mobilities and inequalities, shifting context and changing paradigms. So the selected entries will be showcased at the conference. So stay tuned for the formal announcement and follow us on social media. Links are already given in the chat box. As sir also appeal to you, please take membership, and the membership link is given in the chat box and also the email ID. So once you take the membership, please write to us. We'll add you to the WhatsApp group so that we can take conversation there. Okay, so and thank you so much all of us for attending the session. It was a very, very good session. Ipsita, Ankita, Sebanti, we really enjoyed the discussion.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I'll just keep this meeting on for 5 minutes so that whoever wants to copy the links can copy from chat box. And thank you so much, Maitreyee ma'am, for being there and attending the session, and as always, I mean, encouraging us to do something new. Thank you so much.
Also, if the participants maybe want to say something, they can.
Yeah.
We have 5 minutes, maybe they can say something.
So I guess thank you, Vaishali ma'am, because I remember when we when I met you, Ipsita, we decided that we'll meet Vaishali ma'am through Maitreyee ma'am, and then we met at a cafe and
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद वैशाली मैम और सतीश
testing
सर
on visual
और
sociology. So thank you for also somewhere directionless to we talk. How do we talk about such less space also to talk about, or avenues also to talk about our subject? So thank you, Vaishali ma'am, because you have been the one who have been creating everything, talking to us, calling us, telling us, even Ipsita. So thank you, even Sebanti and all, and thank you everyone, and obviously Professor Maitreyee Chaudhuri and Professor Satish. Thank you everyone.
धन्यवाद वैशाली मैम और सतीश सर। ये कार्यक्रम मेरे लिए बहुत कुछ दिया और बहुत कुछ बताया, बहुत कुछ जान पाया। और स्मिता दीदी, ये बहुत अच्छा लगा ये कार्यक्रम में मुझे जुड़ करके। मैं बिहार से जुड़ा हुआ हूँ और मैं पत्रकारिता का छात्र रहा और मेरी पढ़ाई कंप्लीट हो गई, मगर कोरोना काल ने कितना अच्छा अवसर दिया है हम लोगों को कि इतना अच्छा अवसर आभासी माध्यम से इतनी सारी अच्छी चर्चाएं होती है और इसे मिस करना मेरे लिए मूर्खता हो जाता है। क्योंकि जब मैं बैठा था तो मैंने इस पेज को मैं इसको कोरोना काल से ही लाइक कर रखा हूँ और यहाँ से मुझे हमेशा कुछ नए नए कार्यक्रमों की जानकारी मिलती है। तो ये आप लोगों का, गुरुजनों का देन है कि भले ही मैं बिहार से हूँ, पढ़ाई हमारी बिहार में हुई हो, मगर कोरोना काल ने इतने सारे गुरु दिए हैं और इतने सारे गुरु दिए हैं जो कि मुझे एक परिवार की तरह लगता है। और ये कार्यक्रम में आपने जोड़कर जो मुझे सिखाया, जो बताया, जिससे आज की युवा पीढ़ी बहुत सारी चीजों को सुनना नहीं चाहती है और यही वजह है कि हम लोग कुछ कर नहीं पाते हैं। तो ये आपने जो विषय रखा वो भी एक सकारात्मक दिशा में अच्छा चीजों को जानने का अवसर मिला। और वैशाली मैम, सतीश सर, आपका संचालन दीदी, स्मिता दीदी बहुत अच्छा रहा। ये बहुत बहुत आपका आभार और धन्यवाद। हम हिंदी में बात करते हैं तो हिंदी ही बोल पा रहे थे, इसीलिए इंग्लिश मगर समझ में आती है, इसके लिए धन्यवाद आप लोगों को।
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay,
और
good seeing you all. And I'm happy there's something happening on visual sociology.
Hi, Vishu. Hi.
You saw my struggle all through my journey. I was listening to you in the gaadi, in the car.
Yeah.
Anyways, very interesting. I'm soon going to join, and I'm actually motivating a couple of other people to join in. So
Great.
And I would love to be part of this. And I've been doing it since Vaishali knows we come from the same place, so we know how we've been socialized into understanding visual in different forms. So I'm happy that we are seeing this day, and I mean, films join us. Vaishali does a lot of film studies. I do a lot of film reading and study. So look forward to, and wonderful Sebanti and Ankita, wonderful work. I really enjoyed your discourse, and I'm so
their work is wonderful.
Doing so well. I mean, that gives us hope, as Maitreyee ma'am also says, that young people doing and then able to showcase their work, which motivates others. So that's something great. So thank you, Vaishali, and thank you, Satish sir. Yeah.
Welcome.
और भी जो अपडेट्स होंगे विजुअल सोशियोलॉजी के बारे में, हम उसको फेसबुक पेज पे डालेंगे।
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, sir, for joining, because it's very time difference is too much, but you managed to
It's
join. Thank you so
fine.
much.
No, it's morning now. It's about
Yeah.
10:30 the
Okay.
morning. So started at 9, which is comfortable time.
Comfortable.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
So I hope
Thank you.
everybody has copied the link. So I will switch off the meeting. Yeah. Okay. Chalo. Bye bye. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Bye-bye.